Who would have thought a simple lemonade stand could turn an entire neighborhood into a battlefield? It all started on one of those perfect summer Saturdays. Warm sun, soft breeze, the smell of cut grass in the air. My 10-year-old son, Alex, was sitting out front behind his small wooden stand with a hand-painted sign that said, "Fresh lemonade, $1." He was beaming with pride, convinced he had just invented business itself. I stood on the porch watching him pour each cup like it was a masterpiece, and for a moment, everything felt right. That's when trouble showed up in the form of Mrs. Green, the HOA president and self-proclaimed guardian of neighborhood perfection. You could hear her heels before you saw her. She came marching down the sidewalk like she owned the pavement, tablet in hand, clipboard tucked under her arm, lips pressed tight enough to crack a walnut. She stopped right in front of Alex's stand, squinting as if she had caught someone robbing a bank. "This," she said, waving at the lemonade stand like it was radioactive, "isn't authorized by the HOA. You can't just sell things out here. It attracts unwanted traffic and lowers property values." I blinked, stunned by how serious she was. "He's 10, I said, trying to sound polite. "He's selling lemonade, not houses." But Mrs. Green wasn't here for logic. "Rules are rules," she declared. "If we let one person ignore them, chaos follows." She snapped photos of the stand, scribbled notes on her clipboard, and stormed off, leaving the air thick with judgment. Alex looked up at me, his smile fading. "Did I do something wrong, Dad?" he asked softly. "No, buddy," I told him. "Some people just don't remember what it's like to be a kid." Still, he looked crushed, and to avoid further drama, I helped him pack everything up. For the rest of the day, he sat by the window, watching cars drive by the empty spot where his stand used to be. I told myself it wasn't worth getting angry, that it was better to move on. But when Mrs. Green turned back at the end of the street and gave me that little victorious smirk, something in me shifted. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the start of a war. A week later, while mowing the lawn, I noticed something at the corner of the cul-de-sac that made my jaw drop. There it was, a brand new lemonade stand, bigger, fancier, covered in pink glitter and balloons. The sign read, "Lemonade by Lily." Lily, as in Mrs. Green's daughter. And this wasn't some simple setup. They had a cooler, a cash box, and even a digital card reader. Mrs. Green sat beside it on a folding chair, sipping lemonade and chatting with neighbors like the queen of suburbia. I turned off the mower and walked over. "So," I said, forcing a polite tone, "I guess the rules don't apply today?" She didn't even blink. "Oh, this is different," she said smoothly. "Lily's doing this as part of an HOA-approved community event. We can't have everyone setting up stands. It ruins the neighborhood aesthetic." I stared at her, half in disbelief, half boiling with anger. "Community standards?" I said. "You mean double standards?" Her lips curled into that familiar condescending smile. "You're new here," she said, adjusting her sunglasses. "You'll learn how we do things. Maybe focus on keeping your lawn trimmed instead of worrying about HOA matters you don't understand." Then she turned her back to me. I walked home fuming, trying not to explode in front of Alex. He had seen the whole thing from the window. "Why does she get to sell lemonade?" he asked, his eyes watering. I didn't have an answer, not one he'd understand yet. But that night, as he slept, I sat at the kitchen table staring out the window, replaying her smug words over and over. And I decided something. We weren't backing down. The next weekend, Alex and I rebuilt his stand. We painted it a bright yellow, added real lemons along the edge, and made it twice as nice as before. This time, we set it up right across the street from Lily's stand. Alex looked nervous. "Are you sure, Dad?" he asked. I grinned. "Absolutely. If they can do it, so can we." The morning sunlight hit the jars just right, glowing like liquid gold. Neighbors came by smiling, waving, cheering him on. For a few beautiful minutes, it felt like justice. Then the storm came. Mrs. Green's front door flew open. She stormed out in her pink bathrobe and curlers, stomping down the driveway like an enraged general. "What did I say about unauthorized stands?" she shouted, her voice echoing through the block. Alex froze. I pulled out my phone recording. "Relax, Mrs. Green," I said calmly. But she didn't stop. She marched up to the stand, grabbed one of the jars, and slammed it to the ground, glass and lemonade exploding everywhere. "You can't do this," she screamed. And then, in a blur of fury, she picked up a small decorative stone from the curb and hurled it toward Alex. It hit him right above the eyebrow. He dropped instantly. For a moment, everything stopped. The world, the air, the sound. Then I ran. "Alex!" I yelled, catching him as blood trickled down his forehead. My hands shook as I called 911. Neighbors poured out of their homes, phones up, recording everything. Mrs. Green stood frozen, her face pale, her hands trembling as she realized what she'd done. "I didn't mean to," she stammered. But the sirens were already coming. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it starts with a camera. The paramedics arrived within minutes, lights flashing, sirens echoing through the quiet suburban street that suddenly felt like a crime scene. Neighbors crowded around, whispering, filming, and pointing toward Mrs. Green, who stood trembling on her driveway, trying to explain herself to the arriving officers. Alex sat in the ambulance, his forehead bandaged, still dazed but brave. I stayed beside him, holding his hand, trying to stay calm while my heart pounded like a drum. When the officer approached me, I showed him my phone. The entire thing was recorded. Her shouting, the stone, the injury. The officer's expression hardened as he watched. Then he turned toward Mrs. Green, who immediately launched into excuses. "It was an accident. He provoked me! They were violating HOA rules." Her voice cracked with panic. The officer didn't buy it. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you assaulted a minor." Within seconds, the cuffs clicked, and the neighborhood's self-proclaimed queen was suddenly powerless. The sight of her being led to the patrol car was something no one on that street would ever forget. Phones recorded from every angle. Her once perfect image, the woman who wrote citations for slightly tall grass, was now the one making headlines for attacking a child. The next morning, local news vans lined the street. HOA president arrested after attacking child's lemonade stand. The story went viral overnight. Social media exploded with hashtags like Justice for Alex and Jaco Lemonade Freedom. People across the country were furious, posting videos, memes, and comments tearing the HOA apart for hypocrisy. Even the mayor's office got involved, condemning her actions and promising a full review of the HOA's behavior. I didn't expect the support. It came pouring in like sunshine after a storm. Strangers sent messages offering to donate to Alex's college fund. Local businesses sent free lemonade supplies, and a nearby park offered us a booth for a community lemonade day. When Alex woke up and saw the crowd gathered outside with signs that read, "Alex's Lemonade Wins," he smiled for the first time in days. He looked up at me and said, "Dad, we did nothing wrong," and he was right. Meanwhile, Mrs. Green's world crumbled. Her mugshot spread online like wildfire. She was forced to step down from her HOA position, banned from community events, and fined heavily. The HOA board itself came under scrutiny, facing lawsuits for discrimination and harassment. Karma didn't just visit her, it moved in permanently. Weeks later, the neighborhood held a block party to celebrate Alex's Lemonade Day. There were balloons, music, and laughter. Kids ran around holding cups of lemonade, the air filled with joy instead of fear. Even the new HOA president, a kind, retired teacher named Mr. Howard, stood up to give a small speech. "Sometimes," he said, raising his cup, "it takes a child to remind adults what community really means." As the crowd cheered, I looked down at Alex, proud beyond words. He was laughing with friends, running his stand like a true entrepreneur, no fear in his eyes, only light. I turned toward Mrs. Green's empty house, its blinds shut tight, a "for sale" sign now planted on her perfect lawn. The same lawn she once measured with a ruler. It was poetic. The camera crews eventually left, the online noise faded, and life returned to something like normal. Except now, the neighborhood felt different. More human, more connected. Sometimes justice doesn't come from the system alone. It comes from standing your ground and letting truth be louder than arrogance. And every time I pass that corner and see Alex's bright yellow stand with its hand-painted sign, I smile. Because what started as a war ended as a lesson. one that even the HOA couldn't control.